and welcome to Adventures in Local Marketing from BrightLocal, the marketing podcast for marketers who want to do good local SEO. In the upcoming episodes, I'll be chatting with a smorgasbord of marketers who each bring their unique insight to the local marketing landscape. And each episode is going to give you a one-stop overview of our guests' chosen topics. And it's going to give you tips and tactics that you can dash off and implement straight away. I'm your host, I am Claire Carlile, and I am BrightLocal search expert, as well as a chartered marketer with over 20 years of experience working with businesses of all shapes and sizes. And today we are going to be chatting with Elizabeth Rule. So Elizabeth is an expert local SEO analyst at Sterling Sky. And over the years, she has been involved with many local businesses as they scale and grow, both through acquisition of other businesses and by the extension of their own offering as they build out their bricks and mortars or their service area businesses on a national scale. And as a Google Business Profile Gold expert, she helps businesses crack the code to gain valuable visibility in local search, and she helps solve their complex Google Business Profile problems. She's also a faculty member and a speaker at the local U SEO conferences. So I would like to welcome Elizabeth Rule to the show. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, Claire.
It is very lovely to see your face. Thank you for speaking with us today. We are going to be talking about your experience of scaling local businesses. So when a local business is already slightly multi-location, and we're going to be talking about growth and the systems and processes that businesses need to keep in mind when they grow. I am very interested to hear about the type of experience that you've got in this area, because I know when I think of you, I think about all different parts of Google Business Profile. I think of you with your excellent content that you're producing for Sterling Sky. And recently we have been chatting and thinking more about all of the amazing experience you have in multi-location also. So can you give us a bit of a background on what you've been working on and how you've been working on that type of growth?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with tons of different types of local businesses in a bunch of different industries. I like to work with businesses in the home service sector, particularly because it's very varied. Like there's a lot of different niches you can be in that sector. They tend to overlap, and there's a lot of opportunity for growth in that area because they can really expand to multiple areas of a state, multiple states by going to people's homes. Like they're not constricted by people having to come to them. So there's tons of opportunity for growth in that sector. I'm thinking HVAC, plumbing, home repair, home healthcare is a big one that we've been working on at Sterling Sky, cleaning services, things like that. But I also do work with brick and mortar businesses where people have to come to them to get services, particularly healthcare services like professionals, doctors, dentists, and storage unit facilities. That's a big one as well, big market. So when I'm talking about multi-location businesses, this is businesses operating maybe in the same state, same area with multiple locations, or national. They have multiple locations in different parts of the country. Particularly, I work with businesses in the US, Canada, and Australia.
So thinking of those home care, those home services businesses, I was just interested in the way that they are set up. Are they always service area businesses, or do some of them like have the bricks and mortar mixed in with that? How does it work mostly with those?
Yeah, it's a mix. A lot of them are service area based, but they do have a physical location where customers can come, view samples, talk to the technicians, pick up things like that. But there are a lot of service area businesses that don't have a physical location on Google Maps.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say, like in terms of growth and the businesses that you have worked with, what has been like the most exponential growth, would you say, going from where to where?
I would say going from outside of your immediate area into a new market. So if you're holding down in America, we have states. If you're holding down like part of a state, or if you're in the Northeast, an entire state, like I'm in Connecticut, so a service area business can realistically service the entire state. It takes about 2 hours to get anywhere in Connecticut. But if you're in somewhere like Texas, your immediate service area is going to be your main city. So when you kind of leave that main service area that you've been quote unquote dominating for a while, that's where you can see a lot of growth potential, because you're accessing a new market with new customer base that you haven't serviced before. And getting a foothold in that area is online and in the local community itself, like actually boots on the ground, is really where you can see a lot of growth.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the main challenges as well, is when we sort of start diving into growth and each of the problems and things that need to be solved in each of those. I imagine that coming from a marketplace, like geographically, that you dominate, and then doing this next step where you're growing beyond and beyond and beyond, and having to grow your brand in that geographic area, is probably a bit of a challenge. What would you say is the biggest business that you've worked with in terms of number of locations that they manage and work with?
Probably 70 to 100. Well, actually, I do work with one that has almost 300 facilities. We don't actively work on every single location, but ones that I work on, pretty much every single location would be about 70.
Yeah. And lots of franchises within that, or are you finding when you're working with organizations on this growth, is franchise, I imagine, is quite separate to that businesses that sit under the umbrella of one brand? I was just thinking of the differences in those types of businesses. Have you had experience in growing the franchises like that?
Yeah, I have worked with franchise models where there's one parent company that owns the brand, but they franchise out to individual business owners, and then we'll work with the individual business owners on their goals. And typically that's very localized. They have one location, maybe 2 or 3 in the immediate area or state, and we're helping them one-on-one grow their individual business. So I do have experience working on those types of accounts, and those can be very fun because you can work one-on-one with the individual that's typically in that area. So that's like a big advantage they have. They know all their employees, they know a lot of the customers individually and personally, and they're very familiar with the area itself. But I also work on the flip side with like a national parent company that owns all the locations. All of the employees operate under that one main parent umbrella. And we're working with a team, like an internal team, that isn't in the immediate area of all these locations. We're kind of working like the umbrella in the sky, looking down on them. But they do work with individual branch managers or people on the ground to get things from them if they're local. So I work both ways.
And when we had our pre-chat, another thing that we covered is I know that sometimes when you work with people, they're growing, but it's more to do with, rather than rolling out additional branches from scratch of their own brand, they're looking at acquiring existing businesses. And so just in terms of that as a model, something that I was thinking about that was not worrying me, but was quite fascinating me, is what do you do with like existing assets that come from that business? If your growth is by acquisition, what do you do with all of the existing assets like Google Business Profile when it comes to you then having to rebrand them? How does that work?
So the way that works is during the sale, and I'm not a salesperson, I'm not even really someone that knows a ton about business acquisitions from that perspective. But from a marketing perspective, if they've acquired all of the assets with the sale, which you typically want to do, like the website, the GBP, the social profiles, they can all be very, very valuable to that brand's digital footprint. And you want to acquire them during that sale. So hopefully that's been done. And typically it is when I work with businesses that have acquired other businesses. And the first thing you want to do is get all the logins. This may seem very like a no-brainer, but you'll be surprised, like how many times the original business owner doesn't have logins, or like it's hard to get logins from them, or they just don't want to give that information up. So you got to make it very clear during the sale, like that's part of the sale. You want to make sure you get all those assets, logins, or the ability to get logins. Say they forgot a password or whatever. You want to be able to work with them. Be like, hey, I had to send a code to this email to get a login to your Facebook. Can I get that? And once you have those digital assets, you have to figure out what to do with them based on what you're going to do with that brand. Because when you acquire a brand, you can either rebrand it to another brand that you own, like your main brand, or say you have other brands under your umbrella, or you can leave the brand name as is. So you have to decide one way or the other what you're going to do. And then from there, take the appropriate steps to rebrand that website. Maybe you're going to redirect it to your website. You're going to want to do that very strategically. That's going to give the most SEO value to your main domain that you're redirecting it to. You're going to want to deal with the GBP in a way that either you're rebranding it and you're doing it with the proper steps so Google understands what you're doing. Because you can't just like slap a new name on it, put a new website, new phone number. That's a recipe for suspension. So you got to be very strategic with it to help Google understand what you're doing. Because they may or may not understand what an acquisition is. They may or may not understand that you've acquired this business and you now own this GBP. So you got to be very careful with that. And then social profiles, don't get me started. Facebook will lock you down real quick. So you got to be very careful with that as well if you're going to try and rebrand it. Or say you have like a bunch of Facebooks out there in the wild. You want to consolidate them typically so that you don't have too many to manage. But at the same time, again, be careful that Facebook doesn't lock you out of everything because you're a suspicious actor.
Mm-hmm. Just you were saying there about Google Business Profile, and as I'm sure everyone is aware, are you gold? Are you platinum? What are you? Product expert at Google Business Profile?
So right now I'm a gold product expert on the Google Business Profile Forum. I'm working on becoming platinum. So I'm helping more and more businesses every day on the forum.
You are. I see you there. Elizabeth for platinum. You deserve it. I'm just thinking about solving problems within the Google business community. What is that something that you see a lot is businesses that have been acquired and they want to move that? What's the best thing for them to do? Do they move that business? Do they keep that one and try and change the name? Because I guess you know, say for example they're keeping the address. It might be a new URL because it's a landing page, but it's a new business name. What is the deal with that? Can they actually change those parts of the business profile, or would Google say you should just start a new one? What are the parameters for what you can do with your business profiles?
It really depends on the situation. Like if you buy the business and you've also bought the building they're in, and you're going to be physically occupying that building with your own employees or like the same employees that you've now brought over to your business. If you have that space legally and you're going to continue to legally operate the business out of there, it's totally fine to keep the business profile as is at that address, as long as you're adhering to all of Google's guidelines. And then you can either rebrand it because you've rebranded that building. The employees are now wearing different branded clothes. The trucks are all rebranded. And this is, again, for a home service business. If, say, you're a dentist or something, you've acquired that practice. you're typically gonna move into that space because they have all the dental equipment. They have the office set up to be a dentist's office. So as long as you're rebranding everything like signage, inside everything's rebranded, and you make sure legally, like on your state, like in the US, we have state registrations. Make sure all your state registration is up to date with that address. And then you update your website with that address. Say, we're now here. We're located at this office as well as our original office. In that case, you're allowed to have that Google business profile, and you should keep it because it has more authority in that area. It probably has reviews on it, and those reviews aren't going to be for your business, but if you take over that profile, you can't get rid of them. You've also acquired those reviews. So if they're all positive reviews, that's great. You've kind of started ahead of everyone else that has a new profile. But if they're all negative reviews, you kind of got to decide, okay, do I want to take on the burden of these negative reviews, or do I want to start a new profile for my business, which technically you can because you are a separate entity, you're a separate business, but that original profile is going to remain live on Google. It's just going to be marked permanently closed. So you just have to understand that and kind of weigh it.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned there a little bit about the reviews and thinking about reputation and reviews and thinking about the BrightLocal's brand review index, where, you know, looking at massive multi-location and reviews are important at every single location. You know, that's actually the point. It might be a big brand that you think of in a certain way, but it comes down to, obviously, the individual locations, the ones that do well, do really well at managing reviews and making sure that that brand voice trickles down into those individual reviews. So I was wondering, like, beyond if the reviews are awful, what do you do if you're acquiring? It's the same category as, like you're saying, you're buying some dentists, dental, say for example it was dentists. You're acquiring these locations. You want to keep that because there's quite a lot of currency almost in how long that profile's been around, but maybe it's slightly at the shaky end of the review scale. When businesses are doing this, what do they think of? If it's 3.5, are they thinking, oh no, we can't take it on? Or are they thinking, okay, we need to deal with this? How do you manage that, like, expectation or those processes within a business, within an organization?
Yeah. So if the profile is ranking relatively well in the area, I would probably keep it and read all the negative reviews that the old business has gotten and try to learn from them. Like, what are customers really complaining about? What are their actual issues, and how can you change that with new management? One of the best things or benefits of having a brick and mortar is you can have a sign that says under new management or something like that. You can even add that to the Google profile as a post. You can write under new management and explain how it's now been bought by your practice, explain a little bit about yourself. And then you just have to work with the customers and earn positive reviews that are going to kind of shift the needle from having that 3.5 to going above 4 stars over time. And Google weighs recent reviews more than they do like the review count or the star count, like overall. Like, say you've gotten like 100 reviews, but you haven't gotten a new review in a couple months. Getting some more reviews is going to give you more of a ranking boost than just having that number of reviews from way in the past. So getting more positive reviews consistently over time from real customers in that area is really going to help push that star rating up and give you that ranking boost at the same time. So I would say the profile is probably not too far gone if it just has like a 3.2, even lower than that. And you just have to work with your customers and show them a better experience. And maybe even if you because you get the patience from that old practice. Reach out to those customers that left a negative review. Give them an offer or something. Say, hey, come in for maybe a free dental cleaning. Let us show you that we're a different practice now, and kind of put your worries to bed with your old experience and come back and be a regular patient. And then maybe they'll change that review. You don't know.
Yeah, I love that, because my my initial thoughts are, inheriting something with really bad reviews, but I guess it's just a question of doing that work to get a really good feedback loop in place, get those new ones, make sure they're good, and thinking about the fact that you can go into some of those bad reviews which might not have been answered, and retrospectively you could go in as the business as it is now and say, we really feel that we could do better, we'd love to have you back. Because a lot of the time it is the business's response, isn't it, that you look at as a consumer. So like retrospectively going in and saying, hey, we'd love it if you could try us again. So basically, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater if you are in a position where you're acquiring businesses with a less than stellar review count, because I'm sure that there is value in the longevity in many cases of having that.
And customers love being heard. Like they left that negative review for a reason. They're not trying to like scream into the void. They're trying to get other people to understand their point of view, and maybe even get the business to understand like what they can do better. So learn from them and become a better business right off the bat, because you already have all this experience from other customers really just written out for you on this profile.
For sure, I love that. We've made it an opportunity now rather than anything else. And because we've had a little bit of a rant together now, I feel like we've been so jolly, and now we're like, bad reviews. This is your opportunity to take something that you think needs to go away from the world of marketing. It might be a phrase, it might be a concept. It goes away into room 404. And basically, what do? I don't like to say we kill it, because we're gentle people, but we'll definitely leave it there and it will get no more airtime. What would you like to see in room 404?
So something that I'm guilty of saying, I'll admit it, I'm trying to change my ways, but a phrase that I hate to hear and I wonder what the heck it means is optimized for SEO. So when you have a page of content on your website and your SEO team or whoever is doing your SEO says, I optimized this page for SEO. Well, what does that mean? Like, I'm going to need some more context here on exactly what you did and why you did it. So over explaining what optimized for SEO means is definitely something I would put in room 404, because it's just a silly phrase that really has no meaning.
Will we keep it? Will we put it in room 404? Yeah, okay. It has to go into room 404. It can go along with sprinkling on the SEO magic after someone has already written their content and finished their website. Now go ahead and
just do your SEO magic.
Do the SEO magic. So yeah, that could go. We could say goodbye. Goodbye, Optimize, and SEO copywriting as well. Melissa, I think Melissa put SEO copywriting, maybe. I can't remember what it was. Something awful like that. They can all go in the bin. Thank you very much.
SEO content.
SEO content, yeah. Some of that magic stuff that
can go right in there.
Yeah. It's all about the keywords and using them 6,000 times on the page, and then you'll be good. Okay, that can go. Now, if someone is listening to this and thinking, okay, scaling businesses, I want to take, my business, whatever it is, from, where are they, 10, 15? Is it just a question of, if you're planning on going at some point to 100, 150, whatever you are, is it just a question of more of the same, or is there anything that people can think about to stand them in a much better stead before they grow? I know one thing that you spoke about, which is useful, is to do with this management of passwords and having some sort of centralized access to assets. Can you fill us in any more about that, or give us some other tips about things that people really should be thinking about before they grow even further?
So you mentioned someone having like 10 or 15 locations, and that's a great starting point to have so and so many locations, because you could have all of those in one state. But if you're looking to grow nationally, you have to think about the architecture of your website and how it's currently positioned locally. So say you've always been in the state of Texas, you have like 10 or 15 locations across the state. And your website is completely focused on Texas, and you want to branch into maybe like Oklahoma, Louisiana, maybe you're going all the way to California to serve customers. How are you going to incorporate that new location onto your website? So if you're in the growth mindset that you know you're going to be growing outside the bounds of like a certain area, you want to make sure that your website is set up to do that appropriately. And that can mean maybe your homepage isn't targeting a specific location necessarily. It's more branded, because when someone lands on that page, you want them to understand, okay, they're located in Texas, but they also serve these other 3 states. And you want to have nice internal link structure to navigate people and Google to those appropriate location specific pages to get them to their local area and where they want to see like, well, the services you offer in that area. Maybe you don't offer every single service in Louisiana that you offer in Texas. You need to make sure that's stated on your website so people understand. So setting that up early is very important. Like maybe having some more national focused pages, not just all local specific pages, because you're going to have a lot of an easier time getting visibility in search and in maps if you're looking to get a Google profile as well, if your website is positioned to naturally target that state.
So touching there on like information architecture, really it's really planning out this group of pages, however that's going to work with your location pages, whether or not you're going to have service pages nested in those, or whether you're going to have service pages nested somewhere else but linked to from those pages. Can you just give us a couple of examples of big brands, big multi-location brands that you think do a really good job of having that sort of solid information architecture, so someone could go and have a look and go, okay, yeah, I understand what this is supposed to look like?
Home Depot's a really good example. They have really nice location pages for each one of their stores. And you'll see on those location pages, they have information about the area, information specific to that store, like store hours, phone number, the different services they offer in those stores. I've been seeing Home Depot's offer, they connect you up to local home service experts in the area. So if you need some HVAC done, you can buy your stuff at Home Depot and then also get connected to a local pro in the area to install that stuff. So they have all that information right on the location page, and they rank really well in the area for a variety of different terms people are searching. So definitely check out Home Depot if you're looking for examples of what a nice location page can look like on a multinational scale.
Is there a good like home service area business? What would be like the 2 sites that you would send people to have a good look at understanding how? Because they're slightly different format pages, aren't they? Like Mr. Router, or I mean, this is like big American brands that I'm thinking of. Who would you think of? Like, because the home service, like some of them are absolutely huge, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, Roto-Rooter would probably be a good one. I have to say, I haven't looked. I don't look too much on other home service websites that I'm not working on. for sure. I just took a look at the website. It looks fine.
It looks fine. Okay. Praise indeed from Elizabeth. Your website looks fine. Right, we'll write that up in an audit for them. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, that's one of the things I do end up spending a lot of time on is going down the rabbit hole of competitor research and looking at how everyone puts things together. But you mustn't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, just because, they must have thrown a load of money at this, so therefore this information architecture is going to be brilliant. It's not necessarily the case. And so I agree with you in the sense that you can say, oh, this is amazing. And you're like, that is the worst bunch of location pages I have ever seen. They're not indexed. They're not internally linked. You have a location finder that you can't actually... you need to list, or in some way you need to list all of the locations in a way that Google can crawl them. Not having a location finder that picks up on my IP address and tells me that I'm nowhere near a branch. I mean, the number of times I've got into that type of loop on a website is just like, anyway. So even big brands get it wrong, and we can actually sort of learn from people that have had their information architecture put together by us, for example. Let's think about some of those businesses. Can you tell us? I always love the nightmare stories. I always like the ideas of, these are some of the things that people, naming no names, obviously, but these are some of the things that have gone awfully wrong that I have seen when I'm pulling apart either existing businesses or businesses that are looking to scale. What are some of the, the pitfalls that you would say need to 100% be avoided?
So I've worked with businesses that have a ton of Google profiles, but no one knows where any of them are verified to, and they're all service area businesses. So those can be very challenging to deal with because you don't know if they're going against or with Google's guidelines. Like, is this a legitimate location? Is this not? Is this some employee's home? And the worst is when they get suspended because you're trying to work on them and maybe something triggers a suspension for whatever reason or a re-verification. Recently on the forums, we've been seeing a lot of threads on re-verification. So Google may be working on something where they're trying to re-verify a bunch of businesses, who knows? But if that does happen, and you can't re-verify it to that address it's originally verified to, and you don't have another address to move it to that's legitimate, you kind of lost that profile. So I've run into that a couple times where we have a bunch of profiles. It seems like a really well-established multi-location business, but they don't have a solid foundation for these Google profiles. So that's something you want to make sure when you acquire a business, if they have a bunch of SABs in Google listings and you want to keep those, acquire them, find out where they're register or verify to, find out more information about them. And if they are at some employee's home or something that you can't re-verify to, you can't get unsuspended if it gets suspended, you need to have a plan B for that listing. And eventually, even if nothing happens to it, you want to make sure you're planning to move it somewhere that's legitimate, that you actually have legal rights to use, because eventually everything catches up to you when it comes to Google. Like, you don't want to put all your eggs in a basket has a hole in it because you don't have any way to plug it because you don't have any resources to re-verify or reinstate it.
And what would you say, what do you need to make sure that you have a record, like say, for example, for the service area, when you're working with multi-location, with a load of service area businesses, what are the main points that you're going to need to have a record of? I guess, so it's where the business was originally, the original address that was used, whether that was hidden to start off with or showed for a bit. What else do you need for each of those?
You need to have, like you said, record of where it was originally verified to. And that's pretty much it. Like, you can change the other elements on the profile as needed. Like, if the the phone number you're typically going to change to your own phone number. You do want access to that profile, of course. Like, you want to become the primary owner, and you want to be able to kick anyone else off that you don't know. So like, getting primary owner access is crucial, because then you can make sure that you're managing the people on the listing how you want it to be managed, and say you put it in a location group. You want to make sure that group is safe, because you know that there's no one else on that profile that's maybe going to have an account that becomes restricted for whatever reason, and then all of the listings in that group could get suspended. So you want to be very careful with the manager access on the profile. Everything else, pretty much you can just change as needed, as long as, again, you have all your ducks in a row. You want to make sure that whatever address you move it to, you're legally allowed to work out of it. You have that address added to your website and it matches the Google profile, so Google can make that connection between your brand and this profile and this address. You own that phone number. That's another very important thing. So when you change it, you want to change it to something you own, rather than keeping their old phone number that you may not know where else that is living.
Mm-hmm. I imagine the service area businesses, in terms of that being a piece, is probably a lot more complicated than managing multi-location for bricks and mortar, just because of the difficulty with the original addresses, etc., etc. So one thing that I really wanted to speak to you about, just because I've heard you talk about this before and I've read some of your stuff about this, is this idea that I want to grow my business. You've touched on this a little bit before, that, you're in a particular state, or you're really dominant in a specific area, and you want to grow. Now, thinking about opportunity and where's the best place to go to, where's the best place to get my bricks and mortar business, what are some of the steps that someone needs to go through? If you give us a rundown of that would be amazing, please.
Well, the first thing you got to think about is the cost of getting an additional location in another state. Like, can you justify that cost with what you're going to get out of like the new customer base in that area, what you can maybe get online from leads in that area, because your website is now set up in a way to show up organically in that area because you have a physical location. Maybe you do get a Google business profile in that area now, so you're getting leads that way. Is the cost going to justify, or is like the value of leads you're getting and the revenue there going to justify the cost of that lease location? Maybe you buy the building or whatever. Because you don't want to just expand your business to improve your digital, or to increase your digital footprint. Like, you shouldn't just get locations to get another Google business profile. It really doesn't work in the long run. That's very hard to scale. So you want to think about locations that have like a higher population density, that have like the correct, like a good amount of household income medians that makes sense for your business, so that you're going into an area with people that are hopefully going to call and like actually want your services. You're going to be able to make a good amount of money in that area. So when you're looking for a place to expand to, you have to, can you get to that area relatively easily? Or can you set up a workforce in that area and manage them in that area appropriately? And if all that works out, like, yeah, I know I can go to this major city and make a ton of money in that area, I just need a presence, then yeah, setting up a location and setting up the digital assets for that location can be really beneficial for your business if you can manage it on the ground. Like, you need people in that area working. You need someone at that space that you have the Google profile verified to working out of that space every day. Like, it's very important.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to choosing a location, if someone is saying, well, I want to move to this town, this city, wherever, do you advise on location choices, where they should essentially get their office and base themselves. What would businesses be looking at that? How would they tackle that?
So this is definitely something we do at Sterling Sky. If you're looking to get a new office location, you know the city or you know the general area within your service area that you're looking to get, and you want to maximize like visibility on maps and organically, then yes, we definitely have ways to kind of figure out where in the city or the area would be best to get that location to maximize visibility as best you can. Being close to the city center is usually preferable, because when someone searches for like a service in a city, say like dentist in Philadelphia, Google is going to put their pin marker right in the middle of Philadelphia, and they're going to, their radius is going to go from that center point out. They're going to look for businesses in that area closer to the city center to show the user. So if you're in that area, you're going to have an easier time showing up for explicit searches like that. So like the service plus location. But being within the city borders in any capacity is extremely important. Like if you're looking to show up in Philadelphia for any Philadelphia searches, you definitely need to be within the Google defined borders of Philadelphia. And if you're outside those borders, you're going to have a much harder time ranking for explicit keywords and probably implicit keywords. So even when someone doesn't add the location, if they're in Philadelphia, you're probably not going to show up that well.
So have it being near that sort of proximity to centroid, didn't it used to be, which is just like, well, you need to be as, that's what I was going to ask you, is if someone wants to see what Google sees as the limit of a geographic area, how do they actually see that? How do they go and check?
You can just search the city in Google Maps and it will show you. Or if you open the Google Maps app, just zoom into the city and click on the name, and then Google will outline the border for you. And that's the border they consider of that city. It's not always the post office like address. So I've worked with businesses that are like, yeah, I'm in this city. This is my address. And that's the address according to the post office, but they're actually technically outside the city borders according to Google, which in this case is not a benefit to them because no matter what the address actually says on Google, it's technically outside the borders. And another way you can look at this, like if you already have a profile and you're wondering, am I in the city borders? Like my address says I am. Look on your profile and see if it says like whatever industry you're in. Say you're a dentist. It will say dentist in Philadelphia. If you're outside of Philadelphia, it's going to say the town you're actually in or the county. So I don't actually know what county Philadelphia is in, but it would say dentist in so-and-so county. And that's how you know you're outside of Philadelphia.
Isn't it funny that the way that Google sees the limits of a city are sometimes different than the geographic? That's really quite annoying, isn't it? I imagine for some businesses.
Extremely, because there's like some cities, there's these weird pockets. It's just like a little indent in the city or like a little pocket, and you're right in that pocket. So like the rest around you is the city, but technically you're in like some community or you're in some like city within the city that Google doesn't consider the main city. So it can be very frustrating. But if you're looking to move your business like somewhere else in the city, always pay attention to that, because you don't want to go from being inside the city to outside the city. Or if you're already outside the city and you're like, I'm tired of not showing up, and you're willing to move your physical location, look at that border to get inside the city and as close to city center as possible if you're really looking to show up as much as possible for explicit searches.
That's definitely a top tip to go out and make sure that you do that work. And when it comes to, I'm just thinking about this choosing locations, is there ever a balance between proximity to the centre and number or density of competitors? I guess, do you just have to make an informed guess or?
Yeah, definitely the most educated guess you can. I recommend that.
Yeah, and then just deliver it with confidence, basically. Um,
Yeah, you want to make sure too that you aren't too close to a lot of the competition because you are going to be fighting for that top spot. There is a rule, or like maybe not, it's not a rule, but there is something in Google Maps. We call it the local filter. And if you're within 200 feet of a competitor, so typically in the same building, or it could be in the same like strip mall or something, if that competitor is in the same industry, which most competitors are, you're gonna run into Google's local filter, where Google's only gonna want to show one of the businesses in that category from that building or that strip mall area. So you got to make sure you're as far away from the competition as possible, at least 200 feet away. So if you're a lawyer, don't go into any other buildings with lawyers. Like, I know lawyers love to do this. They must get like some sort of discount in certain buildings, because I see buildings with like dozens of lawyers in them. They're all getting filtered by Google's local filter for every search. Like, you may show up for one search for one keyword, but you might not show up for another search for another keyword because Google's picked another competitor. So that's very important to pay attention to. But even if you're not within 200 feet, if there's like, this seems to be the thing with dentists, there's a dentist on every corner, especially in like a major city. You don't want to be somewhere where there's like literally a dentist like everywhere around you. It's going to be kind of hard to show up in maps unless you're doing hardcore SEO for many years. Even then, it can be hard to show up consistently if there's just a ton of competition in your area. So you do want to play with that a little bit to stay within the boundaries, but also kind of stay away from the competitors. Like, maybe all the competitors in like New York City, they're down below like a certain street number, like and you're kind of higher up near Central Park. Like, maybe that's something you can play around with so that you're away from the competitors, but you're also still as close to the city center as you can be.
It seems like location choice is such an important part of this growth aspect. And I do wonder how it is approached from a strategic point of view, or whether it's someone with a map and a pin going, boop, we'll put it there, it will be good there, without doing this.
So I was going to mention that that's something we actually help a lot of our clients with that are looking to grow. That's a service we offer, like national businesses, if they're looking to get another location in a state that they're already in, but maybe they want to be next to the other biggest city in the area. We do help them find like what is the prime location to be in, or maybe they already are in the biggest city, but there's a bunch of suburbs around there they want to dominate as well. Like Houston is a really good example of like the city itself is densely populated, but the suburbs around Houston and other Texas cities as well. Dallas Fort Worth is a really good example. Those suburbs have a lot of people, very densely populated, very competitive. But by doing that research to look into like how many people are living in this suburb, how many people are moving to this suburb. And this is something I actually learned from Andy Simpson at one of the local U's in Denver. He was mentioning, look at the demographics of people moving into the city versus people moving out of the city. Like, are people flocking to this city over time, or are they leaving? Because that's a really good indicator of like, do I want my business in this suburb of this major city, or do I want my business in this other suburb that has a similar population, similar household income? Well, everyone seems to be moving to this area over the last couple of years. They probably will continue. So maybe we pick that over the other one where people seem to be leaving.
I love that's a brilliant summation of all the things that you need to think about. I think it's massively underestimated and undervalued the all of the parts of that you need that technical knowledge of, especially of how the Google algorithm, as well as forecasting the future in terms of the growth for that area. Brilliant. Thank you very, very much, Elizabeth. This is the part of the podcast where I am thinking to myself, yeah, I'm into this. I want to know more about, this area, growth, the things that you need to think about in terms of local SEO visibility and growing your business. Is there any resource or person or place that people can go to learn more about this particular area? What would be your go-to people or resources?
Well, I gotta say Sterling Sky. We do a ton of studies and tests and research into local SEO and also multi-location local SEO, because it's definitely something that's much more popular than it was previously. Businesses are looking to grow. They're looking to get more locations on Google. They're looking to add more locations, service areas to their website, expand their service area. So Sterling Sky has tons of resources. We have the local search forum, which is a forum you can go to and post any question you want. And we have local SEO experts there to answer them every day. I just mentioned Andy Simpson because he did have that amazing talk, and he still talks about and does research into picking that best location for local SEO. Like, how can you use data to determine where your business should go to next? So definitely check him out. If you're a multi-location business and you're at all doing enterprise SEO, Crystal Tang at Uberall is a great resource. Follow her on Twitter. Just learn more about enterprise SEO and everything to do with bulk verification, which is something we haven't discussed. But if you're a multi-location business, oh, I know. If you have 10 or more locations, you definitely should look into that. And Crystal is a great resource for that. And then, of course, BrightLocal. Like, they have all the tools you need to manage multi-location businesses. I'm thinking specifically their citation manager is a great tool to manage citations at scale, because that's something we didn't talk about, and I don't think people talk about enough, especially when you're acquiring a business. They might have a mess of citations that you don't think about, but people may be finding, they may be showing up on a branded search, and you're going to need a tool and resources to help you manage that. And I think BrightLocal has some really great options.
That is very kind of you to say, Elizabeth. Thank you very much. And we need to thank you very much for being here today with us and for sharing all of your insight. So thank you very much. And a big thank you to all of our listeners. So we will make sure that we include all of the links that Elizabeth has talked about today and her great resources at the end. We're going to include those in the show notes. So make sure that you check those out so you can follow up and learn more about this area. And if you have enjoyed listening to Adventures in Local Marketing, and we really hope you have, then go ahead and leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. Share it with a friend that might like it. Listen to it with a friend. Have a night in. Listen to episodes of our podcast. That makes us happy. It makes a difference, and it lets us make even more valuable content for you. So if you are lovely listeners and watchers, have got any ideas about guests that you would like to hear from or topics that you'd like us to cover, then go ahead and tweet me at Claire Carlile or at BrightLocal. And in the next few months, we've got episodes with all sorts of people. We have got Arij Awali coming up, and you need to make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss out on access to her brain, as well as some other super duper lovely brains. And I recommend checking out our previous episode, if you haven't already, where I chat with Melissa Pop about how local businesses can use storytelling in content marketing. So we will see you next time on Adventures in Local Marketing. Goodbye.
Bye.